Welcome to Creativity with Emily, where I interview women entrepreneurs to talk about their journey, creative process, and challenges on the way to success. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Hello, Sheetal Story.
Hello, Emily.
Welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to have you. You have no idea. You have so many talents and so many skills. You are an astrologer, a psychic medium, a grief counselor. You are a law of attraction coach, a speaker, and recently a podcaster. So tell us how you got into doing all of those things.
Oh my gosh, that's a huge story. Well, I was born, no, just kidding. I was born with the ability to see spirits. So I saw energy. I have the ability to see energy around people. And it's very natural in my culture. You know, my mom is a spiritual healer. Just our religion, I'm Hindu by religion.
Yep.
So the idea of spirit and reincarnation, things like that was very normal. So my gifts were always really kind of well received, you know, in terms of I was never made to feel bad about them or that I was different. But I am a first generation Canadian, so my parents are immigrants to Canada. And coming into, you know, living in Edmonton, I really just noticed how different I was in so many ways when I started to go to school.
Okay.
And so in school, I noticed that no one else had the gifts that I did.
Oh.
And when I commented on certain things, I remember walking to school one day with the kids in my neighborhood, and there was a swinging, and I said, "Did anyone see that guy? How creepy is that?"
Yeah.
And the kids are like, "There's nobody there. It's just the wind." And I look back, and the guy's gone. And I realized then that I had the ability to see things that others didn't. And I really just wanted to belong. I really do have a wound of belonging and friends, you know, just wanting to be like everyone else, which is so ironic because I'm not at all meant to belong. That's, you know, like I meant to stand out, but I didn't realize that until I was in my 30s, I think. So I pushed my gifts away at the age of 9. I used to have nightmares, and my mom said, "You know what? You just get to be a kid. Just push them away. Imagine closing a door at the top of your head." And I did, and it's really interesting because I went into then becoming more scientific. So back then I was really designer. I wanted to design clothes. It was really creative. And then I went into sort of more this math and science side of things. So went to university, met my husband, all as well. I was in a supply chain, so in the sales and marketing side of food service, and had my first child in Vancouver. We moved back to Edmonton, and then I had my second child almost 15 years ago, and that's when all my gifts started to open back up again. And at that time, I was seeing spirit. I was knowing things about people that I shouldn't know. You know, it's just like a spirit was everywhere. I really was not in control of my own gift.
Right.
So at that point I was seeking out answers, and I came across some mentors and just started to learn. And like it just, the doors opened to, I started learning about the tarot. I became a tarot reader. I honed my gifts as a psychic medium, learning about the philosophies of mediumship and what happens when we cross. And even through channeling, there's also philosophies of mediumship through different religions in the world as well. So learned about that. So I'm a learner. I'm a Virgo. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but it's like we're super perfectionist, analytical. We like to organize information. So I kept looking for teachers to teach me, like, what is this? And the doors just kept opening to these amazing people. I met a world-renowned astrologer, lived in Edmonton. A friend of mine's like, whenever I'm going through a hard time, I go see this astrologer. And I was like, okay. And she said, no, this lady's world renowned. She goes around the world and teaches, and she sits on boards. And this woman is like a pillar in the astrology world. And I saw this, I went to go see her. Her name was Chris McRae. And she was this little tiny 80-year-old woman. And she opened the door, and she's like, oh, come in, come in. And I sat down in her study, and she said, what is it that you say that you do? And I said, I'm a sales rep in the food industry. And she's like, no. And she looks up at me over her glasses, and she's like, what do you really do? And I said, I see dead people, I think. And she said, yes, you do. And here's why. And she started to unravel my chart. And I thought, wow, I need to know what this is. So I ended up studying under her and mentoring under her for 6 years. I was so lucky to have her. She crossed into spirit in 2021 during COVID.
Yeah.
So a lot of my astrology is dedicated to her. She is such an amazing woman. She died at 92 years old.
Oh, wow.
And smart as a whip.
Yes.
So, you know, you just kind of these things open up on your path. And
Absolutely.
so interesting, because I was trying to get back into the world of purchasing and executive, you know, with I have a business degree. You know, that wasn't.
Oh, yeah, of course you do.
I have a whole bunch of credentials that we didn't talk about.
Yes.
But I have a business degree, and I was trying to get back into the world
Yeah.
of purchasing, and the doors were just slamming in my face. I'd get into the 4th to 5th interview. I'd be like shortlisted for the position, and then they'd go with the other person who had less experience than me, had less credentials than me, and I said, what is happening?
Right.
And I heard Spirit say, you're looking in the wrong path. You're looking in the wrong path.
Yeah.
So, and every time I open this door of spirituality and helping people and teaching, everything just started to open up.
Right.
So I became a professional astrologer, actually got my designation, and had to do major testing and 6 years of credits and work. It's like a degree.
Yeah.
And then obviously I'm a psychic medium. I've passed many tests. I actually had to prove that the spirit person was here.
Yes.
Do all that work. And then I'm a human design reader as well, meditation teacher.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say about that.
there's
Oh my
just
God, so many things.
Honestly. I laugh with my coach. It's like, you know, what do you want? I got to watch for that. I got to watch for that. You know,
exactly.
There's just so many things. I didn't know why.
Right.
I wanted all the, like,
Yes.
I was just getting pulled, you know, you know that too. Like you just get pulled in a direction.
Yeah.
And you don't know why sometimes, but you just have to trust. And in the end, it actually all came full circle. It all came full circle with regards to grief counseling. I use all of those tools to help women who are going through tough transitions.
Yeah.
And women who are in business and CEOs, because you can't up level past your own safety mechanisms.
Yes.
I think that has been the wildest turn of events for me. Like, I did not see that coming, that that's who I would be helping in the grand scheme of things.
Even your story about like going to interviews and being rejected, that reminds me of my own journey when I was, because I had a career in law. I was supposed to be a lawyer. Like, I lost my job. So things happened to me and I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I'm trying to get back, find a new job. And I go to interviews and I'm rejected. And it reminded me of this last story where I went into an interview to get into a program for human resources, which was kind of like my last chance, last trial. I was like, okay, I can't find a job as a jurist, so I'm going to go into human resources. And I go to the interview, and it's the worst interview of my entire life. The man was so mean to me.
Thank you,
and
man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
In that moment, I was like, oh my God, he was so
out.
mean to me. He told me, what are you doing here? You're not really motivated. Even if I flew from Reunion Island for the interview, I left everything there. I was like starting over, and I got to the interview and nothing goes the way it's supposed to be. And I leave this interview and I didn't know spirit at that time. I just heard, you're done. This is it. You are done with this. And I think the next day I decided to start my photography business, and I never looked back. So I love hearing stories like that about how you try to go into something and then the universe is like, absolutely not. No. So can you talk about like this idea of like the universe and, timing working for you, and like how sometimes we need to follow the signs, or like the little signs first, and then it becomes bigger and bigger.
I love that question. I always say rejection is redirection, right? I mean, that's not my saying. It's there, it's common in the spiritual world. But rejection is redirection. And I really subscribe to that. So if, you think you're going in this direction, I actually just had this conversation with a client yesterday where I said, Spirit almost will dangle a carrot to come here. So that's you being a lawyer, right? And then they'll dangle the carrot to get to here. And then now you're like, okay, this is now where? And then you think you're going to go in this direction, but actually the carrot has moved, but you don't realize. You're just kind of on this journey. You think this is where you're going to go.
Right.
And so whenever things aren't going in your favor, that is actually redirection. Right. But how hard are you going to push, right? Yeah. So, and it's kind of a mixed bag, because sometimes it's like there's a test of how badly do you want it, and sometimes it's no, this isn't for you. And how do you know the difference? I get a lot of those questions. It's like, well, but sometimes you have to push past the dip. Seth Godin talks about the dip. It's a great book where you get to the dip right before you get to the gold, and you have to push through the dip. So when do you know it's a dip, and when do you know it's a redirection?
Right.
And the answer is within your heart, I think, is like, do you really enjoy still what you're doing? Because if I was thinking about going back to purchasing and doing all that, I really wanted to go back there because I thought the money would be there, right? And I could retire, and it felt like it was actually from my brain, like my mind was telling me this is what I should do, because that's what normal people do, whatever normal is. I mean, I talk to dead people, and really, what is normal? But I think I didn't realize my brain had been taking over, and even recently I went through burnout, and I was like, I'd never, like, it's almost like the train switches tracks, and you don't even realize, when did that happen? Like, when did I go into my mind versus my heart? So I think every time there's like a little glitch, it almost asks you to come back into your heart and go, is this really where you want to go? Is this the path you're on? Or are you being redirected to something else? So I think, when you look back to even your loss thing, like, I'm so curious, what pulled you to photography?
Oh, it was a hobby for me because I was looking for a job and I was bored. Because I was applying for jobs, going to interviews, sending, resume. So it was just so boring to just look for a job in the law field. So I started scrapbooking, digital scrapbooking. And for digital scrapbooking, you need photos, even for scrapbooking. So I was like, I don't really have a lot of photos. So I started taking photos, going outside, taking photos of flowers, animals, whatever I could photograph. And I realized I loved that. I loved the creative process. I loved the idea of like, okay, I'm trying to create this. How can I, let's think about it. Like, how do I make this happen? So it really started like so innocently. It was just like me, I was like, I love taking photos, and I have a photo that I can put on my my scrapbooking page. And then I was like, I like this. And then I think I started searching online. It was like 2007 and 8. It was before social media or anything. So I was like, I would love maybe to be a photographer, but what do they do? And then I found wedding photographers in the US. They were in California, and I loved the way they photographed weddings. They were doing documentary style, but not in a photojournalistic way. It was really more lifestyle. This is what the trendy at that time. And I loved the way they would capture moments. And that really inspired me to start my business. I was like, wait, I can, I want to do this. This is fun. So very randomly, I found those people that, started this little spark in me. So,
I think that's the key then. It's the fun. It's the spark, right?
Yes.
I think we forget about the fun. I know I do. Like, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. We are, okay, so full disclosure, we are friends.
Yes, we know each other very well.
Very well. And we have lots of brunch talks and talks about things.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so easy as an entrepreneur to get pulled into all the must-dos, right?
Yes.
Like you're being pulled into funnels and email marketing and your newsletter and podcast and, all the things.
All the things.
And you forget about the fun. Hey, and I think that's where the burnout comes in, for sure. But I think that's really the lesson in life, too, is keep following that.
Yes.
I think as a society, too, we've kind of come away from having fun. Like, you do your job.
Yeah.
Your job should... I actually had a coach that said your career or your business shouldn't be your fun.
Oh,
your hobbies are your
interesting.
Fun. Like, and I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
Like, I feel in service. And he said, you need to have a profitable business, so make it profitable and go have fun in your private life. Oh. And I think that's a very masculine. It's a guy, it's a very masculine point of view. Yeah. But I think it's also one that drives the revolutionized world, right? When you think about industrialization and everyone coming into cities and working in factories, it's not fun.
No.
It was a means to make money. Right?
Yes.
And they needed labor to then cover off, all these jobs so that the people at the top could make the money.
Right.
So we needed that labor. And of course, that's when colonization came along and importing of slaves and all of that terrible stuff. So I think there's been this real moving away from the joy of what, your purpose and your mission is. And I think if everyone was living their purpose and mission, making an honest, living wage, if not more, how much better would this world be?
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that's I feel a lot of the mission that I have in my heart is to bring people back to that purpose and joy, and you find that spark.
Yeah.
And I think when you are lost or you're feeling like you're trying to open a door that keeps closing, whether it be a relationship or a job or just life circumstances, is where are you happy?
Yeah.
And I think we stop asking ourselves that because we're kind of scared. I
Absolutely.
see that in my grief counseling.
Yes.
I often will ask ladies who are going through transitions and big life transformations, what makes you happy? And the answer almost certainly is, I don't know.
Okay.
We're so pulled off the track of what makes you happy.
Right.
So I think that's really the answer to the original question is I think you'll know what makes you happy, or maybe get that spark of inspiration. I mean, as you said, with photography, right?
Absolutely.
And then even photography might not be your thing forever.
Yes.
We've talked about that too, that it will change. And that's why I love human design and astrology so much, because it shows you when you're multi-passionate, or there'll be transits that will show you that you're like, oh, life is starting to shift you in a different direction.
Yeah.
But your mind can be such a foe when it comes to that, right?
Yes.
Like, no, you should stay with this thing. That's what your parents did. That's what your grandparents did.
Yeah.
That's what
you studied for.
Patriarchy tells you. Screw the patriarchy. So
Yeah. Yeah, can you talk about this idea of using astrology, using human design, even mediumship? Because I know there's some stigma around, talking to dead people or spirits, and even astrology. It's becoming more mainstream now. People, there's so many things about astrology. There's more podcasts, more public
TikToks,
people talking about it, TikToks. Yeah. But how do you really use those tools to help people?
I think there's this is such a wonderful question, because you can use it in so many different ways, and there's so many different branches of astrology as well that help people going through different circumstances, in terms of there's astrocartography if you're relocating in the world. Yep. There's mundane astrology, which talks to the geopolitical nature of what's happening. There's things that go with the environment. There's many different asking a question, trying to figure out solving crimes. That is a cool branch of astrology, man. And so there's lots of things you can do with astrology. I personally use astrology, human design, and my mediumship to help women who are moving through transitions.
Right.
So I find with the mediumship, for example, I had a client whose husband passed away very suddenly in a car accident. They were at a really wonderful time in their relationship, and he just passed suddenly, and she was devastated. And so she also had a therapist. She was also seeing me for grief counseling. And probably the fourth session, I had asked her to bring a picture of him, and I like them to introduce them to me. And so it's really a wonderful way to keep the memory alive, right? I think especially when we lose people, it becomes very uncomfortable for people to talk about them, because they don't know how to say it, or it feels weird, or they're dead, we're supposed to move on, which is a total lie. And so I asked her to bring a picture, and it was almost immediately, as soon as we logged on, I got a picture of him. It's almost like he's showing himself to me, and he's riding a Bronco, and he's got his hat off, and he's got the chaps and everything. And I said, by chance, do you have a picture of him riding a Bronco? Because she had never mentioned to me that he used to rodeo.
Right.
And I said, did he used to rodeo? And she's like, oh my God, yes. And I said, he showed me this picture of him with the hat up, and he's on a Bronco, a bucking, it was actually a horse, and he's got the chaps and everything on. And she turned the picture around, and it was the picture that she had brought.
Oh my God.
It was the picture of that. And that could be psychic. I could be tapping into her and seeing that. And I said, but he's telling me there's boots under the table that you're not showing me. And he said, I don't know why you keep those boots around, because they're so dusty and disgusting. And she's she started to cry, and she reached down and she pulled up the boots that were under the table, and they were all dusty and old cowboy boots, right? And she's like, I can't let them go. And I said, from a grief counseling standpoint, you don't ever have to let them go.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. There's no one. I know people will tell you to get rid of your stuff and whatever. No, you can keep that stuff as long as you need to.
Yeah.
There's no expiration date on that.
Right.
And then he started just bringing up stories about them and how they met and things like that. Things that she did not mention to me. And that's when she was like, oh my God, he's here.
Yes.
And it gave her such comfort, you know, to know that he was at peace, that he's walking alongside her. She was going through some things, and he saw all of those things, and also added some things that she then had to go away and corroborate and go, you were absolutely right. He
Right.
was here. So that was really beautiful.
Yeah.
And then even in that session, I mean, I have for human design.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certain parts of human design that show me how people receive information. So as a coach then,
Yeah.
or as and someone who's counseling someone, I'll make sure, like if they have a 1 in their human design, I know
Yeah.
it's getting more into than this podcast, but they need more information. They're an investigator.
Yes.
So then I'll explain the psychology behind things.
Right.
Because I also have psychology in my background too.
Yes.
So I'll have the psychology of why you do this thing, and this is why this happens, and ask more introspective questions.
Yeah.
Versus some of them that have a 3 in their profile that's
Yes.
a trial and error.
Right.
So they like to try it themselves and figure it out. So I'll
Yeah.
ask a question, or I'll get them to do an exercise,
Yeah.
and then they'll come back and go, "Oh, you were right. This thing happened." And I'm like, "That's perfect, right?"
Yeah.
And I also notice with the people who have 3 in their design, they have a lot more fear of judgment. So they're always like, "Did I do it right? I know I'm not crying enough for you." And I'm like, "There's no
Oh, wow.
expectation to cry."
Yes.
Like, it's really interesting
Yes.
how much we judge ourselves and try to hold ourselves
Oh,
and
wow.
accountable, even in therapy.
Yeah.
And then in terms of astrology, I can see transits. And so when someone's going through, or different things are more like the way that they're more apt to be, like, for example, in my chart, I have my moon in my first house.
Yeah.
So my emotions are on my face. Like, you can see me
Right.
a mile away, right? When I'm happy. And then when
You
I'm
have
sad,
to-
you're like, are you okay?
Are you
Because
okay?
you're not
What's
as
going
bubbly
on?
and
Yeah.
outgoing, And I have a Sagittarius moon, meaning I'm very outgoing, I'm very
Yes.
optimistic, but I can also take on more than I
Yeah.
can chew.
Right.
So knowing that about, like, if I was
Yeah.
my client, I'd be like, oh, okay, you have to be really careful with your commitments,
Right.
because you want to do everything and have
Yes.
to bang on.
Yeah.
So you can see those traits and characteristics in the chart in astrology, and then you can also see transits where things are changing, or life is really opening up opportunities for going back to school, or
Yeah.
being in the home, or being more quiet.
Yes.
We can just see that in the chart. And so sometimes we are trying to work past our, like, against our cycles.
Yeah.
And I like that the chart shows what your cycle
Yes.
is. And what I normally hear from my clients, I'm like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Or I've always felt that way. How did you know?
Yes. Yeah.
It's really like nothing I say to people, it should be groundbreaking. Really, like, it's mostly, I just give people permission to accept who they are.
Yeah. This is fascinating to me. Also, I'm a 3/6 generator, so I do. I am scared
Trial
of
and
being.
error.
Yeah, trial and error. Absolutely. I feel like my life is trial and error, and I used to feel bad about trying and then quitting because it didn't work, because my ex-husband used to tell me that I was a quitter. But then I learned about my human design, and it's like, well, actually,
quit.
this is what I do.
Yeah.
I try something, I test it, I experience it, then I go tell people, I did this, this is what I learned, this is my experience, learn from it. So I am not a quitter. I am an
That's right.
experiencer.
And what I love, yes, and the 6 is about the wisdom.
It's
of
about the
knowledge
wisdom.
gained
Yes.
from what you've experienced, right?
Yes.
And you are inherently, because you're the experimenter, you're
Yeah.
also meant to come back and tell us,
Yes.
don't do this thing because I did it and it sucked, or don't take it. And that's why, like, if you watch Emmy on her social media, she will tell you. All the
I will
things
tell
to
you what
avoid.
not to do.
Like, this guy, or this product, or this thing sucks, or don't you, or what do you think about this? I love that.
Yeah. And the funny story about that is that every time I share something like that, I always I need to tell people about this. But then I have this second thought of who I am to that feeling of that fear of being judged, of who I am to tell people about this and that. And then I get tons of DMs or messages about oh my God, thank you so much for telling me about this. Or oh, I didn't know. Or oh, that happened to me too. It's insane every time. So now I don't even second guess when I feel this urge, this intuition of go online, go tell your story, share about this experience, because I know this is meant to help someone else. So I love I love that. And human design has been, I love astrology. I've always loved astrology. And I love what you create for your clients. I'm lucky to be one of your clients and have my chart done every year. And you were right. This is helping me. And it's not every day I look at my chart and I'm like, okay, what's going on in my life? What's going on in my chart? Yes. And be prepared for it. and be mindful of like the things that is going on to just help me live a better life. And it doesn't have to like dictate every minute, every second, but it's good to know. It's good to have the knowledge. And it's the same for human design. It's like knowing that I'm someone who, appreciate experiences. No, so now I don't feel bad having those trials and error and then be like, well, that didn't work. And it's like, well, that's okay. So yeah, how do you like help people like who like really help people who are like going through really heavy things? Like, how do you help? I know grief is like a really important part of your work. You are a grief counselor. And I think grief is still very much taboo, I want to say.
Yeah, I don't think anyone knows how to
Yes.
deal with it properly. I think it is starting to go away. Like I do notice with like my parents and grandparents, they would lean into grief in a really kind of nice way, but it's in a way that's within the family, like you would go to, drop off food or ring the doorbell and
Yes.
see if they were okay, or just check in on your neighbor,
Yeah.
that has gone away, I think, with our generation and definitely with my kids' generation. Like there's a lot more individual into yourself, do what you feel good with. And if it
Right.
feels uncomfortable to go and ask your neighbor who's
Yeah.
just lost her husband if she's okay, and the conversation that might ensue, then you might not know how to hold that space.
Yeah.
So I think we just don't have those tools collectively anymore, because we just, I don't think have been modeled it, or they've gone away, or we just gone more into what we feel comfortable with versus
Right.
being there for someone who's going through something that's really difficult. And to be fair, you have to have capacity.
Yes.
I've always leaned in to grief. I had a office in the girls' bathroom in our high school where people would come and
What?
Sheetal, I need you. I'm like, hey, see me in the girls' bathroom in 5 minutes. And we put down our jackets
Yeah.
and we sit there because we had a really big girls' bathroom, which is very, not the norm. And people would just come in and sit and have a conversation, and
Yeah.
they said I always make them feel better.
Right.
And so I just always, one of my girlfriends in high school called me the bad weather friend, that when things went bad, I would come around.
You're the friend who
and then
we're
when
calling.
things were good, we
Yes.
wouldn't be friends because she'd be
It's
off
true.
with her other friends.
Yeah.
Which, now in hindsight, it's quite toxic. But I feel like, which are other things about me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for another podcast. But that was, I think I lean into that even from a young age. I just was really comfortable with it. So
Yeah.
I think that I can sit with someone, or I see from a psychological standpoint and
Right.
an energetic standpoint, because I see people's energy.
Yes.
So if you're going through something, I
Right.
almost like I feel magnetic to people who are
Yeah.
having a hard time. And for me, boundaries was something I really had to, I'm still learning, I had
Yep.
someone message me this morning saying that their mom's going through end of life, and I was like, how can I fit them into my schedule? How can I sort them out? And I heard Spirit say, Sheetal, it is not for you to help everyone. And so I gave her a
Right.
bunch of resources, and I couldn't help it at the end. I said, and I can fit you in for 4 sessions if you desire. And she did not take it.
Okay.
And I thought, okay,
Yeah.
thank you,
There.
Spirit.
Yes.
Thank you, Spirit, for showing
For helping me.
that I need to not keep making time for it.
Yeah.
But it's so hard. Like I was having this conversation with my coach because
Yeah.
there's so many people that need help,
Yes.
especially now.
Right.
And especially from COVID and everything that's been happening, and things around the world too. There's just so many atrocities happening that I want to help so much. And it's like, how do I help so many people
Right.
without burning out too? So
Yes.
I think grief, it's a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
There are helpers everywhere when you think about it, and there are always going to be glimmers. When you're going through the
Yes.
darkness. A friend of mine said, in the dark corridors of transition, I'm a light that shines the way.
Yeah.
And I thought
Oh, I
that
love
was
that.
really beautiful. And I feel like that a lot of times. That's why when someone's going through something, I almost like,
Yes.
I want to bring them into my world and see how much I can support.
Yeah.
But I think in being an entrepreneur has made me realize creating spaces for them to come together,
Yes.
resources to help, for yourself as
Of
well.
course. Yeah.
And then when you need help, grief counseling is there. And
Yeah.
I don't know very many people that are doing spiritual grief counseling. I think that's a real
Yeah.
niche that I've discovered.
Yes.
But there are lots of grief counselors out there. But because I bring the human design and the astrology and the mediumship as well, you can't hide
No.
from a psychic.
you will find those people.
I had a client the other day. I said, how are things going? And she said, it's good. I always start off my sessions with like a 2-word emotional check-in. How are you feeling in your body? And I always say when people say they're good or fine, it's an emotional, it's a mental answer to an emotional question.
Okay.
You're answering with your mind when it actually should be answering your body.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, you're not actually fine, because I can feel, I have the ability to tap into you and feel where you're holding energy.
Yeah.
So when we started, I'm like, okay, let's do a little meditation. Get you all loosened up. Everything's all tight. And I can feel that in you, but I have the ability to say, okay, I feel it, and then it's not mine.
Yeah.
So I had to learn that. And I think there's a lot of intuitives and empaths in the world that they're actually meant to do the work that I'm doing.
Yes.
And they don't know how to use their gifts yet.
Right.
So they tend to find me through intuition development and things like that. So, with grief counseling, I love it. It requires boundaries. I want to help all the time. And I also have to learn how to help those people when it's right for me in my capacity too. But it is so needed.
Yes, it is very needed
in the world.
I want to go back to when you started to really go back into your skills, your talents. And when I met you during the pandemic. Yeah.
2019.
Exactly.
Before.
Yes, exactly. So tell us about this moment where you were like, okay, I'm done with this career, and because I need to go help all those people. Those people need me, and this is the time. Like, can you tell the story about what happened?
Well, and that sounds really lovely, but it didn't really happen like that.
It's never really lovely at the moment.
Just make it sound so good.
Right?
I love you so much. No, it didn't happen like that. So I was in a job for 13 years, 12, 13 years. And I was a sales rep in the food industry. It was like a little family. Yeah. And towards the end, things just started to go south. Like, I got a new boss that was absolutely the worst boss I've ever had in my life. We just butted heads, and I ended up just telling him off in the middle of a show. I was like, where did that come from? I'm not that person. It was all these things that were sort of catapulting me towards the end of that job. All of the heads of departments that I managed, they all left, and then the company dynamic was changed. I mean, it's just so many things, again, you can just see a red flag after red flag. It's time to change jobs. And then I got sort of headhunted for another position. So I took that position, and it was in seniors healthcare.
Right.
And what was the industry that was decimated during COVID? Seniors
this industry.
Healthcare.
Yep.
So it was quite interesting, because even when I took that job and I started January 1st, 2020, I said to my mom, I feel like this is a stepping stone job. Like, I don't think I'm going to be here very long.
Right.
But I had full benefits. I was getting a great salary. Like, there's no way I'm going to leave this job.
Yeah.
But I had so many things already paid for and in my schedule. And I said that during my interview. I said, I'm going to be going for my grief counseling certification. It's in March. I also have my mentor here for mediumship in March, and I have all these things, so I know it's more than I have holiday time for, so I don't mind if you take it out of my salary.
Got it.
And they said, no problem, you're hired. So then March 2020, right, I finished my grief counseling certification in the middle of the month. Then my mediumship mentor was in town, and I was doing that. And then on the last day of that finishing, COVID shut down Canada. Right? And I thought, wow, that's an interesting timing for things. Yeah. And also during that time, it was already here. I mean, you and I talked about it. We thought that we might have had it even before they said it was here. And, whatever.
For sure, I had it before.
For sure. Yeah, you were
I came
so
back from
sick.
the United States, and I was like, I am so sick. Yes.
Yeah, and we didn't know that this was a thing. And then we're like, oh, my God, I think this is what you have.
Yeah.
So the healthcare providers were all on outbreak status already because it was already here, and they were not letting anybody in or out of that facility, so I couldn't get in and establish rapport. Right. So they're like, well, you're not doing your job, we're going to have to let you go. And so I was like, I was so happy. They thought I was nuts. I was like, this is it. This is happening. I'm going to go full time. Right. And because, you get the email that says, we need you to be on a call in 15 minutes.
Oh,
and you see,
very fast.
Yeah. and it was only my boss and his boss's boss.
Oh, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good when you got a last minute.
Psychic to know.
Yeah.
So like, I'm being let go. And my husband had just been released because he was in the food service industry.
Right.
So he was already on what we call CERB, which is the government's wage that they were giving out during the pandemic. And so I took the call at the dining table, and they're like, we're going to let you go. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing. And they're like, are you okay? And I said, I am great.
Yeah.
And they said, we're going to extend psychological care for you for a year if
Oh,
you
okay.
desire.
Yeah.
I was like, thank you, but I'm not going to need
I'm
it.
good.
Yeah, I'm good. And I hung up the phone, or hung up the call, or ended the Zoom call. And my husband's like, did you just lose your job? And I was like, don't worry, it's all good. And they gave me a great severance package, and then CERB came along, and everything was like, it was really interesting because I had said to my coach, if I just had this much money, I could quit everything and go full time.
Yes.
And everything added up to that
exact amount.
And I was like, okay. And so my coaches said, sleep on it. It's Thursday night. Go to bed. Monday morning, we'll hash out some things and get something going for you.
Right.
And then Friday morning, I woke up, and this passion and purpose, discovering your soul-led passion and purpose came out for me. And I sat there at a computer, and I did a 12-module course on that, and I put it out. I just, like, the fastest thing ever, I just put it out on the internet, and 15 people signed up.
Amazing.
I made 3 months worth of salary in 1 week.
Amazing.
On top of all the other stuff that I had already from the CERB and all the things. And I was like, my God, this is it.
Yeah.
And that was in 2020.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So it just all kind of came together. And then I just started teaching classes online. And it was interesting. I had a psychic coach who was like, Sheetal, you need to go online. Sheetal, you need to go online. I'm like, no, I do everything in person. We do everything.
Oh my God.
Roll your eyes at me, Emmy. I know you. Yeah, it was funny, and of course foretelling that going on Zoom and stuff. And I think, the world now, even now being at the time of this recording, November 2024, that it's still not quite opened up, has it? Like,
I know.
To get coaxing people to come back into community and in-person events, it's still not there. People are kind of awkward again.
Yes.
And it's not again, but like for the first time, I almost feel like there's this epidemic right now of isolation, and I really, I love podcasts like this because I think it's going to bring people into more of a community, which I know you do such a good job of.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to talk about this where you were just mentioned the creative, like that intuition, because for me, creativity is intuition. It's the same. It's
Correct.
like comes from,
Yes.
Can you explain how your creative process or how your intuition like works for you? Like
Downloads?
Yeah,
Is that what
exactly.
you're talking
Download. I don't think I don't call them I don't know, downloads. Yes, exactly.
about? I
Yeah.
call them downloads at times,
Yes,
but I think
absolutely.
It's getting a bad stigma now.
Yes, it does. And also, I didn't know that they were downloads. It was just like, I just had an idea. But then it's when you were talking about this a complete program, was you got it right away. I feel like that sometimes I have very strong downloads, and it's just so clear. And I write it down, and it's like boom, 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 like the podcast or an offering that I need to do. It's very clear, and I get it. I don't know. It's it's coming from here.
Yes, that's why it's called a download, right?
Exactly.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Can you talk more about this?
Yeah. So intuition, I actually often get this question of what's a download?
Yes.
How is it different than my own
Yes.
thought? Right. And so your own thought goes through a process. You sort of go, okay, there's a need. Okay, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could do that. So you're almost going through a contemplation type of process, and it's like starting to kind of form, right?
Right.
Whereas a download is almost this thought or this thing that comes out of nowhere, and you're just like, wow, that's pretty profound. Does it come from you? I mean, yes, you're the conduit, right? But we have this concept in spirituality. It's this, things that are meant to be born into the collective will be given to you or other people, and whoever comes first to it will be the first to market. So an example of this would be like the Wright brothers, right? So when flight was coming into existence, there was actually like 3 or 4 different pairs of people around the world that were coming up with flight at that time. Why that time in history? No other time people, wouldn't go down that path. It was that time that flight needed to come into history to then birth out the aviation industry, and
Yeah.
then change the way we interact and fly around the world.
Yes.
So that thought of aviation came into the collective at that time.
Right.
But there was 4 conduits around the world,
Yeah.
probably more. We just know of 4 that
Yeah.
if you Google it, there was people that were there.
Yeah.
And the Wright brothers were just the first to do it, right?
Yeah.
So they were trial and error. They were definitely had a 3 in their human
For
design.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. They kept going and going
Yeah.
and refining and refining. They were just driven, I watched a documentary on them, and they were driven to figure this out. They knew they were close.
Yes.
And if they had given up,
Right.
guess what? It
We
would've
would
come
have
through
not.
someone else.
Yeah.
No, it would've
Oh,
come through
yes.
someone else.
Moving to someone
Yeah,
else.
it
Right.
would've gone to someone
Because
else.
it
was
has to
already
go.
there.
Yeah.
It has to be birthed into the collective.
Right.
Right. So you are a conduit for
Yeah.
what's coming next. And if
Interesting.
you don't take that idea, it
Yes.
will go to someone else.
Yes.
It will pass. You sort of think of it like Facebook.
Yes.
Or the internet or Apple or the first computer. Like
Yeah.
these ideas were coming out, and we often will see that there's like competition.
Yeah.
When VHS and Beta came out, the videotapes, right? There was like those were the two.
Similar.
There was other ones too, but these
Yeah.
were the 2 that rose to the top.
Interesting.
So when something is meant to be birthed into the world,
Yeah.
it's going to happen.
Right.
And at that time, it was such a needed program to have that passion and purpose and mission to help people with that. And who was going to do that?
Right.
And it was me. And then I just put together a whole bunch of things that I learned, and I refined it over the years. And then I let it go, which is interesting. I went into different things.
Yes.
Offered membership and intuition. The intuition classes were always there. And recently I've been getting the nudge that I think I need to open
Yeah.
that back up again. And I did a little poll on my Instagram actually just
Yes.
yesterday. And I think it was 64% of people said, we want you to bring this class back.
The intuition one?
No, the
Passion and purpose. Oh my God.
Yeah, your
Yes.
soul-led purpose.
Yeah.
And so it's really a cool class because your purpose is actually the opposite of your childhood trauma.
Okay.
So if you think about when you were little,
Yeah.
what was your wound?
My wound was feeling unseen.
So what do you do for a living?
I'm a photographer.
Oh, interesting. Isn't that interesting?
And I take photos of women, and so they feel seen. Exactly. Yeah.
That is your purpose and mission. And it's going
Yes.
to take many forms in your life.
Absolutely.
Right? I
Yeah.
have a client that she's like, I really hate the word purpose because it implies you have one thing. I was like, no, it's actually an umbrella. And underneath the umbrella, you will do many things in that way. And it's also how you make people feel is part of your purpose.
Absolutely.
So feeling, literally one of your items, our offerings is called Be Seen.
It was the scene membership. Yeah, I'm changed it, but it was that initial membership idea of like you need to be seen. What you do and who you are is important and needs to be shared with the world. And how do we do this in this this economy? I was going to say
Climate.
It's in climate. It's
Yeah.
through visuals. People love visuals. We live in a social media world now, so people really connected with this offering because it was a time for them to literally be seen, but not just. And this is one of my clients who told me this, and every time I say that, I'm like, trying not to cry. But she said, "Your photos help me to see myself."
You see myself.
Because this is how then I can go into the world to do my thing, because I start by seeing me, and then I feel brave to go do my thing. So I thought that was beautiful.
It is beautiful. And I think, full disclosure, I was one of the scene members in the
yes,
past.
you were.
I still use her photos to this day. That's how good they are. And I've said this to you before. I feel like they could hang on walls, like in museums and stuff, because they're so good.
I love that.
The way that you see people and capture people's soul on film is just, it's an art.
Yeah.
And it boggled my mind when you said you were a lawyer before, and I'm like, what? Well, a lawyer? But
Yeah.
I know, for those of you who don't know, Emmy's a Leo.
Yes.
And so a fighter for the underdog.
Right.
This is, what I love about you so much.
Yes.
So, of course, the lawyer made sense when I saw your astrology.
Yeah. I love that. I've always admired your dedication to your own self growth. Like, you are always taking new classes. You are always learning. You said you are a learner. How is that important for you to not just teach people, not just help people, but also learn for yourself and keep improving your skills? Like, what is the purpose behind this?
I feel like I let my intuition lead the way. You know, if it feels like I want to take this course, I'll take it and I'll find a way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently went to London. You know, I don't even know how I afforded to do it, but it worked out because
Yes.
I meant to go.
Yeah.
And there's, again, no rhyme or reason why I should go to London, but actually so much percolated and came to the surface while I was there. And I just allow my intuition to lead the way. So in terms of right now, I'm taking a number of human design classes to just refine my skills in certain areas, because I really love the idea of using human design now, not only in grief counseling, but I use it for my business CEOs and entrepreneur clients to help them really see how to create a business that's aligned with their human design. And man, is it so great, because you just start to, I'm running a course right now, a 10-week course. There's 10 amazing humans in there. And every week they're like, oh my God, this feels so free. Oh my God, this feels so freeing, because you're like, should I do the webinar? Should I do this? Should I do that?
Right.
So I like learning about tangible things that are going to help like me in life and help others in life as well. And I just know the course when I see it, you know, so I'll read through things and then I'll get the nudge to, yes, I should do this, or no, I shouldn't. So I think I'm always learning, because I like to bring new things or add value to what I'm offering. And I also like to stay current on what's happening too. So I think it's just that, you know, I think there's many of us that are lifelong learners.
Yes.
And school is not an indication of how you learn. Right? Like, school can sometimes be very PTSD, you know, in terms of like the way that you had to learn and sit and, you know, classes and the marks and all judgment and all the things.
Yeah.
And it actually can be really fulfilling.
Right.
And so I teach an intuition development 4-week class. And it's always like, did I do it right? Did I do it right? Am I failing this class? I'm like, I always say right from the beginning, you cannot fail intuition development.
No.
You're doing it. You're doing
exactly.
it. You're here.
Yes.
You know, even if you don't get a spirit guide that comes during that meditation, doesn't mean you have no spirit guide.
Yeah.
It just means you're not ready yet to see it, or you're just not allowing that to come forward. It's okay. You get this course for life. You can come back and do this meditation like a year from now and see if it's ready for you. You know, patience, right?
Yes.
We are such a now kind of society, especially with the advent of social media and technology. We are so impatient and wanting everything now.
Yes.
And I think it's really interesting, you know, when we have to just sit back and allow things to flow.
Right.
That is actually the natural way of it, you know?
Absolutely.
So, I like to learn to always bring, you know, what I know, add to my skill set. But I'm really noticing myself slowing down on that front, and more so just refining what I know. And I feel like I'm at a space now where I probably like know as much as I want to.
Right.
And now it's time to really kind of put things together and refine it versus adding more and more and more into the, you know, the world. So, so I like always keeping current on things. You know, there's an astrology class I'm taking right now too on forecasting, which I've forecast all the time, but I love learning new timings and things like that from others. So it's been interesting to see somebody else's perspective or techniques that they use. So I am always learning.
I love that. Back to human design, you were talking about how you help women CEOs, women entrepreneurs balance their business with their human design. I've learned so much about myself through human design and through how I should run my business, because there was a few things. For example, when I started doing photos, especially portrait photography, so I used to shoot weddings, and then I was like, I'm tired of weddings, I'm going to do portraits. And I had this, like, again, intuition download, this idea that I only want to do one photo shoot a day. This is, I want to protect my energy. This is what I do. I only want to photograph women. I want to specialize in this. And it was so clear, but then I had the pushback from people who were like, this is so stupid. Like, you're not going to make any money, and you're not going to, have a sustainable business. But then I knew that this was what's right for me. And I was like, I don't care what all of you are doing for my business. This is what I want to do. And this has been amazing because I really followed what my intuition, what my guts were telling me. I can only do one photo shoot a day. I give my entire energy to my client. I want to be focused. I want to be energized. I want to be vibrant. And it's not, for me, it's not fair that one person is getting all the creativity and not the other one. So that's why I love focusing on one person. I love that you are helping women with this, with their human design and running their business. Like, how is that important?
I want to actually pause that question for a moment and go back to what you said.
Yes.
Because you said, when I decided to do this thing, then I got all this pushback, right? And I think something that we don't realize is the pushback, the trolls, all the negative attention we get is actually reflecting something that we have within us. So it's almost like a testing. Do you really believe this?
Right.
Do you really feel this? Because I know you're a crusader on the internet, and so you get a lot of people pushing back. And it's always a feeling of like, am I needing to show somebody something, right? Do I need to prove anything?
Yes.
So I feel like when you push through that, or you kind of really have to show that you are committed to this, then they don't come around anymore.
Right.
Notice that? Because it's actually reflecting your energy back, right?
Yeah.
I remember when you moved that to one shoot a day. And I think there's a lot of jealousy sometimes when you're like, oh, I can have a business like this. I can actually enjoy life and have one photo shoot a day. Yeah. I've been in your photo shoots. I mean, you photographed me. Yeah. And it's a full day. Like, it's a lot,
it is
makeup, and then we're trying different things, and then you got to edit afterwards and all the things too. Like, I can't imagine people who just churn. I mean, I used to do psychic fairs, and it's like a revolving door. You are just churning them out, trying to get as many in as possible so you can make one as much money and help as many people as possible too, right? Wow. So it's hard, man, to serve so many people like that.
Why is it important for women entrepreneurs to know their human design to run their business?
Because it makes it so much easier to become profitable and successful. You're doing it in the way that you're designed to operate. Right. I think we do it so much through trial and error. I mean, unless you have a 3, then you go ahead, do it all. But if you want the fastest way to success and ease, then it's like just doing it in the way that you do it. Like, there's a component in human design that actually I just heard in a seminar that I was in, and it's called the vibe of your tribe is the way she called it. And so it's the line on your nodes. I know people aren't going to not understand what that is, but it's the way that your people find you. Right. Okay. So for me, it's a 1, which means that people find me when I'm educating on what I know. So when I'm talking about human design or I'm talking about astrology, people are like drawn. My tribe will be drawn to me for that knowledge. Right. Let's say you have a 3 in your notes. I didn't look it up before this, but then people would be drawn to you because you share what you learn through your trial and error, right?
Absolutely.
So that's how your people find you. But I think oftentimes we're always like, feels like we're hitting darts or we're throwing spaghetti against the wall and trying to figure out, what's our magic sauce? How are people finding me? Like, because you have great offerings, or you're very hard. I mean, I only work with people who are super heart-centered. So you're putting something out into the world that is needed. And yet people aren't finding you. Why? Why? So is it the tactics and strategies? Like, are you doing the webinar right? Are you have your emails? Like, what is that? Or is it that your magnetism is off? Right? Because if you're not magnetic, nobody finds you. Right? If you think you just got to keep doing this thing and cookie cutter and whatever, I mean, sure, you'll make money to a point, I think, but then it will just fail. Because you're not in it. Like, your soul is here to do something important. So it will not just continue to let you do something that is not in your heart and soul. You can try, just ask a lot of people who burn out from corporate. Or, our past selves that were doing jobs that hated, we hate it too. I think human design really shows you the path to creating alignment in your life. We did one of the course that I'm teaching is the throat gate. So we have different centers in our body, the chakras, and so the throat chakra responsible for your voice. If you actually look up the gates that you have blacked in, or like your gates, that will tell you the messaging you should be using. I'm gonna check this out. It's really good. And guess what? I have a storyteller gate in there, and I have that gate. So I was like, oh my god, I tell stories all the time.
And your name is Story.
My last name.
I love that.
Or even like our mutual friend Jillian, right?
Yes.
She's a joy coach, and I was looking up I was learning on her design, and there's actually a joy gate, and she has the joy gate. I know, is it crazy?
This is
I actually
crazy.
messaged her. I'm like, Jillian, you have the joy gate.
This
She's
is
like,
crazy.
Of course I do. You know.
Oh my
So
God.
it is so wild.
It's fascinating.
When you look at
Yeah.
the correlations between your chart and your life,
Right.
and it just gives you more plain English. Like I find that human design
Yeah.
is easier to understand than astrology. Like astrology is
Yes.
a language, and I mean, and human design is a little bit more too, but it uses English versus
Yes.
hieroglyphics. So it is a little easier to understand. But
Yeah.
when you start to get into the nuances and go deeper, like it is fascinating how much, if you just tailored your business to these little
Yes.
tweaks, you just notice it's almost like you go into the groove
Right.
and things just become flowy and
Yes.
easy, versus having to fight and try and
Yeah.
do all these other things. It's just a flow and alignment. It's really beautiful.
I love that. Beautiful. I love everything you do. It's amazing. Okay, I like to end the interview with the little questionnaire, the Proust questionnaire for my fellow French author, Marcel Proust. So I picked this one specifically for you.
Okay.
So question number 1, what is your greatest extravagance?
London. It was
I love that.
luxurious. We went to a 2 Michelin star
I
restaurant.
saw that on your
Oh
stories.
my God. For a high tea, we had a massage in the Roman baths of London. We had dinners we had a cheese conveyor belt experience.
I know
where
that
you pick
cheese-
off the oh my
What?
God, I went back there the next day and had more cheese. It was extravagance.
Oh my
it makes
God.
no logical sense why I would pay all that for that.
Yes.
But the experience and how much it changed my soul was, and to do that with Selena, our mutual,
Yeah.
coach, she just did such a great job of it. Like I changed forever.
I love
Worth
this.
every penny.
And you deserved it. You deserved to take this this trip. It was amazing to watch you doing this. Second question, what do you most value in your friends?
Honesty.
Aw, I love
Honesty and love. I think unconditional love, that's something that I really had as a hard time with in childhood, of people, belonging. And I mean, I love now that our group of friends, and I have a very eclectic group of friends as well. I have mediums, I have coaches, I have astrologers, I have people from, all different kind of places in the world who connection and community is so important to me, because that's my wound from childhood, is not belonging, and so I create spaces of belonging. And so I think that my friends, it's really just the honesty too, that they can tell me exactly how they're feeling, and they don't require a lot from me, because I don't really require a lot from friends either, and I'm so busy. So I think that I love friends that are very, I would say, low maintenance, and as soon as we get together, it's almost like no time has passed, and all the things, and or if somebody needs something, I'll definitely be there. If
Of course.
somebody's going through something, I think there's that secure attachment with my friends, is that I trust that you will tell me when you need something, and please trust that I will tell you when I need something. But you don't have to keep checking in on me,
Of
or
course.
why don't you call, or that
Yes,
stuff
or what
does not live
you
with
didn't
me.
call me, and it's
No.
been 5 months since blah blah blah. It's like
No one has time for that.
Oh, I love that. Okay, last question. If you were to die and come back as a person or a thing, what would it be?
I would come back as a single woman who would travel the world and do as I pleased.
Oh, okay.
I love my children so much.
Yeah.
And in this lifetime, I chose to be a mother, and I chose to be a wife. And I love my gosh, I hit the jackpot with my husband and my kids. I do super love them. But I think sometimes you long for the opposite of what you have. And I do have a lot of commitments.
Yep.
And I wouldn't give up this life for anything. I do love where I've come and how much they've taught me, and everything that we're going through.
Yes.
I think in my next life, I would love to be just a woman of the world, to just travel and enjoy, cheese everywhere, and just ride on elephants in the Serengeti. And,
being a jet setter.
Yes, and just kind of be of the world, in essence of just really enjoying all the things. I was just thinking, coming back from London I've traveled a lot through Asia and the Orient because of my family. And it gives you perspective, you know, when you
Yes.
start to travel and see the world. And then I also love coming home to Canada. Like Canada is such a great country in
Yeah.
terms of safety and
Yes.
security and healthcare and all the things. I mean, do we have a long ways to go? Yes, 100%. You know, but I think in terms of when you travel the world, you realize how great Canada is.
Yes.
Truly, you
It's
know.
good to be grateful.
Yes.
Yes,
So I'm
absolutely.
very grateful for that. But yeah, I think that's what I would choose in next life.
Fantastic.
That or a dog. Hey? They're just so catered to. My God.
Wait, can we reincarnate into
No.
an animal? I know.
No, technically
Okay.
we cannot.
Oh, yeah. I had this conversation with my partner about that. I'm like, I don't think we can reincarnate into an animal. So
No.
you can confirm this.
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't.
Yeah.
So it's actually like an evolutionary scale from
Okay,
the spiritual
yes.
side of things.
Right.
And so were we at one time billions of years ago?
Yeah.
An animal, probably.
Yes.
But our soul evolves through as we become more alert and more conscious.
Right.
Then your soul goes into higher and higher beings.
Okay.
So as a human spirit,
Right.
no, you cannot incarnate as
Okay.
an animal.
Very interesting.
So
I love this. Fantastic. Where can people find you online?
So I think the easiest one would be my website, which is www.sheetal, SHEETAL story, STORY.com, or I'm very active on Instagram and Facebook, but Instagram more so because it's an open account. So it's Sheetal Story, and just on @Sheetal Story. I do have a business page on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Facebook page is, I think it's Sheetal Story Medium there.
Your
If they
Instagram
want-
is fantastic. Everyone should follow you on Instagram because you post, you
A
are
lot.
consistent, and you give a lot of information about astrology, human design, grief. So definitely, I recommend people to follow you on Instagram.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very active. I'm so social, and I'm an extrovert by nature. So I love social media. I'm always in my DMs and commenting on things.
Yes.
And if I see things, I'm always
Yes.
like, oh my God,
Sending me memes.
Yeah, yeah. That's my love language.
I
to
love
my
it.
friends. I'll send reels and memes to
I love
people
it.
I know.
Yeah.
Especially
You're the
if I know
best.
your zodiac.
Oh, I know. You send the best memes, so definitely. I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. It was lovely to chat with you, as always. Thank you so much.
I loved being here. Thank you for asking me. And if you ever want me to come back, I would love to.
Oh, yes,
come
I
back.
will ask you to come back.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.